Hey guys, I am so glad to see you today. I'm a little bit out of breath because I went walking today. It was so pretty outside. I took a nice long walk, visited some with my daughter. She went with me and it was great. And I hope that you guys can get outside and enjoy this really beautiful weather. It's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's just right. So let's start on today's lesson, shall we? If you remember last week, this whole quarter since we started in September, we have been talking about Abraham. And then remember, Abraham waited a very, 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 very long time before he got to have a child of his own. And they named the child Isaac. And so today's story is when Isaac is all grown up. As a matter of fact, here's your teaching picture. And this is likely what maybe Isaac looked like, and his wife here. Her name was Rebecca. And at the end of our lesson last week, we sort of talked about how Abraham knew it was time for Isaac to get a wife. And so he sent one of his servants to go back to where he had came from and find Isaac a wife. And the servant found Isaac this wife. Her name was Rebecca. Now, does it look like they just now got married? No, I don't think so, because look how very old Isaac is here. And Isaac and Rebecca were married for a very long time. The Bible says 20 years before they were able to have children. So they were married a long time, and that's what the Bible verse says right here. It says, these are the generations. Let's see, Abraham fathered Isaac. And then in verse 20, this is verse 20, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah. And then they had to wait for a long time before they conceived because she couldn't have babies. So when she finally did, she was older, and so was Isaac, and they had twins. That's what it says right here. The Lord granted his prayer, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. That means she was going to have a baby, and she was going to have not one baby but two. So they had twins, and the children, even while they were in her tummy, they were kind of struggling with each other, and they were kind of fussing around with each other. And so Rebecca, she says, Lord, what's happening inside my tummy? What's happening? Because she didn't know she was having two. And she says, why is this happening? So she asked the Lord, and the Lord told her right here. He said, there are two nations inside you. So twins, two babies, two people, and they're going to be divided. So that means they're not going to stay together. The two different nations aren't going to stay together. And it said the older one shall serve the younger one. Now that means a little bit of explaining, because back then in those days, and still today in other countries like in Europe, let's think about Europe just for a minute, guys. Whoever's going to be the next king, it's not just anybody. It has to be one of the royal family. And so the royal family, they pass that job down to the oldest son in each family. And so that's what happened back then as well. So the older son got the birthright. That means that he got everything that the father had. And the second son, he had to go and get a job, and he didn't get all the birthright. But this says right here that the older one is going to serve the younger, which means God's going to make it where the younger son is going to get the birthright and the older son is not. So let's look what happened. So when her days, when she had the babies, the first one came out and it was all red. So he had red hair, and he had red hair. Look at the red hair on his body and his legs. And then afterward, his brother came out. When the first baby came out, they named him Esau. And so then the second brother came out, and the second baby was holding his hand onto his brother's foot. So it was, even then, the baby was catching hold. And so then the boys grew up. They grew up, and it says when the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter. This is Esau, and you can't see it very well in this picture, but this is his long hunting pole, and here's his arrows, and attached to this bow there's some birds, maybe some pheasants or something, and so he's really outdoorsy, you see. And so this is Esau, what he might look like, and this is his brother Jacob. Now look what Jacob's doing. Is he going out hunting like his brother? What is this he's doing right here? Can you see this in his hand? Can you see this in his hand? He's cooking. He is cooking. So he helped his mom cook, and he's adding some spices to this, whatever he's making, this stew that he's making, and his mom and dad are here looking on. Well, Esau and his daddy were very close, and Jacob and his mom were very close. So when the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter. He liked being outside, but Jacob, he liked staying inside. Now, his daddy Isaac loved Esau because he loved to eat the food that Esau brought home. Isaac liked to eat it. But Rebekah, her favorite son was Jacob. Now, you're not supposed to have favorites, but they did. So then this is what happens, okay? This is, I didn't even tell you, this is from Genesis chapter 25. And actually, this particular Bible story comes from several chapters in Genesis. But Miss Tiffany's craft is coming from these verses right in here. It says that one time Esau had been out hunting, and Jacob was at home cooking stew. Esau came in, and he was so tired. Oh my gosh, he was so tired. And he was very, very hungry. So Esau said to his brother, "Hey, let me have some of that red stew, for I am hungry. I am hungry." And Jacob said to him, "Well, if you sell me your birthright, then I'll give you some." And this is what Esau said. "Well, I'm just about to die. I'm so hungry. So what good is my inheritance if I'm starving?" So he said, "Okay, you give me some of this stew and I'll give you my birthright," which means that instead of Jacob giving Esau, I don't mean Jacob, I mean Isaac, the daddy, giving Esau all the land and everything, that Esau didn't get it because he said, "Here, you can have it if I can have some of your stew." So he sold it. And this did not please God. So Jacob gave Esau some bread and some stew, and Esau ate it and drank it, and then he just left. So Esau didn't even care about his birthright. He didn't even care. He just cared about eating. So that's how come Esau lost his birthright, and Jacob then was going to get to inherit all his daddy's stuff. And then later on, it says not only did Jacob end up getting the birthright, but also it was very customary back then for the dad to bless his children, to put his hands on him and to offer a blessing and say, "God, bless this child with wisdom, with long life, with," and you would put your hands on your son and you would bless them. Well, by this time, see, these men are really grown up now. And this time, Isaac, the daddy, remember, he's all grown up now. He is very, very old, and he can't see very well. And so Esau was out hunting again, and Jacob, the brother, he put on some animal clothes, some animal pelts, animal hides, and he went into his dad and made him think that it was Esau, his brother. So he tricked his daddy, and his daddy couldn't see very good. And Isaac, the daddy, ended up blessing Jacob. And it says here, "I'm old and I don't know the day of my death." And so he said to his dad down in here that Jacob went in to his father pretending he was his brother. And it's Jacob that's talking, but he said, "I'm Esau. I'm your firstborn son. And sit up and eat of my game." So he caught some wild game, Jacob did, and pretended that Esau did it. And so it ended up that Jacob got Esau's inheritance and his father's blessing, because Isaac said to him, "Come here," and he's talking to Jacob, "Come here, my son." And then Isaac blessed him. See, the smell of my son is the smell of the fields that the Lord has blessed. So it's really not Esau, it's Jacob pretending. So he put on all that animal hides so that his daddy would think it was his brother. So that's what it says. May God give you the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth and plenty of grain and wine. And let lots of people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. And everyone who be cursed who curses you, and everyone be blessed who blesses you. And then Isaac left, and Esau came in. And Esau says, I came to get this blessing, Father. And Isaac realized what had happened, and Isaac was so upset. And how do you think that made Esau feel? That his brother not only got his inheritance, but now he tricked his dad and got his dad's blessing too. Do you think Esau was happy about that or mad? Esau was mad, so mad that Jacob got afraid of what Esau would do, and so he ran away. Now he's an old man, he's grown up now, but he left and he didn't come back for a long time. And I hope you'll read that story some more with your moms and dads. But our memory verse today says, God remembers his covenant. Now, it does not come from the book of Genesis. It comes from the book of Psalm 105:8. But all of these things happened. Everything happened because God made a promise to their grandfather, Abraham. Remember that song, Father Abraham had many sons? Well, it started with one son, Isaac. And when Isaac grew up, he had two sons. And now they're going to get married and they're going to have sons. But they're not going to live anywhere close to each other because Jacob tricked his brother and ran away. Okay? And we're going to talk some more about that next time. And I went way long today, so moms, fast forward some.